Do you want to smell like a spice market straight out of Indiana Jones? This fragrance is for you. Hello, welcome back to Seldomly Often. I'm Daniel. Today we're checking fragrances and this is a practical review of Zoologist Camel. These reviews are for fragrances I have a lot of experience with, multiple wears in many situations, and are meant to give you a general idea of what it feels to wear the fragrance. As per usual, I do a lot of research before buying fragrances, but I don't really like to go into details about notes and accords, as I don't really feel that it helps the end user. I'd rather talk about the wear experience as a whole. Today's a fun one. We're talking about Zoologist Camel. Zoologist is a brand that I'm really fond of. I approached it firsthand relatively recently just due to the lack of availability where I live. I live in Switzerland and unfortunately Zoologist doesn't really ship to Switzerland due to restrictions. I even went back and forth with the creator of Zoologist, Victor Wong, and he said that a lot of the packages kept getting stopped by customs and a lot of them would even go back. So to him, it wasn't worth the pain in the ass to ship to Switzerland. At that point, I sort of gave up. I thought that the lack of availability would be a major issue for me in discovering the brand, so I sort of shelved it. I always kept my eyes open in the market and I never really surrendered, and soon enough, two bottles just appeared out of nowhere. Zoologist Camel and Zoologist Squid. I quickly snatched those up and the rest is history. I already did my review of Zoologist Squid and I really loved that scent. It just so happened that Squid and Camel were high up on the list of my Zoologist interests and purchases. Zoologist Camel is a great scent that took me a while to discover. It has its shortcomings, but I'll get to those in a bit. But overall, the scent profile is very beautiful. It's very enticing. It's the right mixture between mass appealing, exotic, and animalic, and it's a pleasure to wear on a daily basis. Since then, I had the chance to acquire other zoologists, namely T-Rex, bee, Hyrax, and Seahorse. Zoologist as a brand is kind of built to be a collector's brand, even in the words of Victor Wong himself, and it's just overall a very fun brand to explore and to display the bottles of. So what's with my obsession with Zoologist? A huge part of it has to do with the marketing, the idea, and the concept. Zoologist as a brand really strikes me. It's beautiful, it's fun, it's quirky, and at the same time it feels incredibly passionate. And when a company backs it up, especially with the creator firsthand on forums asking for feedback and implementing new ideas, I really fall head over heels about this sort of thing. And there's something about a company that is passionate about their product, that they believe in their product, that they market their product. There's something about the workers being the first fans of the product that really just entices me and makes me a huge fan. Another aspect of Zoologist that I really like is their marketing and concept. Zoologist is a brand that focuses on fragrance inspired by animals and their habitats. Now, the fragrances don't really smell like animals per se. It's not a realistic rendition of the animal. These are more of a cartoonish, stereotypical, and imaginary renditions of the animal or the habitat. Sometimes, as the art suggests, the scent really portrays the humanoid version of the animal. Everything from the potential job of the animal, the personality and lifestyle, sometimes are depicted in these scents. It's an absolute beautiful thing. It's fun and it's quirky. Camel follows suit in a little bit more of a stereotypical way. There's a lot of desert, there's a lot of spices, and there's a lot of fruit. But we'll talk about the scent profile after the presentation. Being a collectible brand by design, presentation is a huge part for Zoologist. The bottles are very iconic and very well established. There are these old-fashioned style bottles with great design, great caps, and great labeling. It's a complete shame that Victor is moving away from this style of bottles, but apparently this is due to the manufacturing process and the labeling process per se, which currently is done by hand. The cap for the Zoologist bottles is nice, it's heavy, it's metal, and it has this beautiful engraving on the top. I'm not a huge fan of this fake leather type of thing, and I think it really cheapens it out. The atomizers for the Zoologist are good in action, they're good in projection, and they're just good sprayers. Let's give it a couple sprays. Very misty, very pressurized, it's just a joy to use. For some reason, the top cap of the atomizers for my Squid and Camel bottle sit a little bit too high and they leave a gap. And this gap is really unsightly and it just cheapens out the whole presentation. I also mentioned this in my Squid review, and I thought at the time, given the fact that I have two bottles, that this was a common issue with Zoologist as a whole. But my bottles of T-Rex, Hyrax, and B do not feature this issue at all, so this might have been a coincidence and I might be just unlucky. As I mentioned, the bottle itself feels pretty high quality. I like the thick base. The one thing about the bottle that is slightly weird is that it's very, very sharp at the corners. These corners, if you're not careful, they could actually cut you. The labeling is the highlight of the bottle. It's absolutely beautiful. The art for Zoologist is incredible. It's also featured on the box, which is a plainly flat style box that showcases the fragrance in a velvety style bed. But yeah, it's well attached, it serves a purpose, and it's gorgeous to look at. Overall presentation for Zoologist, as expected, is a massive win, and it really has a place in my heart. But let's get to the interesting part. Let's talk about the scent profile for Camel. As I mentioned in my intro, Camel smells like a spice market from an Indiana Jones movie. It has this very Hollywood romanticized take on the desert and whatever is exotic in the Middle East. I mentioned something similar in my review for Memo's African Leather, but Memo's take is completely different. They focus on the elegance and the refinement aspect of this. Zoologist takes a more fun approach, takes a more quirky approach. They really include a lot of charming notes. It's very sweet, it's very enticing, it's very potent in a way. It's a beautiful, mysterious blend of animalics, fruit, and florals that is very difficult to pick apart. As I've stated for many other fragrances, this scent really hits you as a unified wave of smell that really doesn't transition much from the opening to the dry down. When you first spray Zoologist Camel, you're really hit with this animalic note. There's something in there that kind of screams barnyard. Now, the animalic note, I do feel that is on the more pleasant side of things, but maybe it's because it's blended well with the florals and the fruits. In the note breakdown, this scent features a lot of dried fruits. I don't necessarily picture anything like dates or dried apricots, but there is this underlying candied sweetness under there, so I can sort of relate to that idea. The most interesting part, to me at least, are the florals, because although the florals are very much featured in the note breakdown, they're not obvious at all. They're really there to support the sweetness of the scent, to help tone down that very ambery body, and to provide a much needed lift to the top of the fragrance. The way the florals are used in this fragrance are absolutely magical. If I really dig my nose in there, if I really try to pick it apart, I can get some rose. It's a very beautiful, fruity rose in there. And these florals are beautifully blended with all the spices, and they come at you together to picture this beautiful exotic spice market. The scent dries down into a more ambery scent, typical for most desert-inspired scents. There is some vanilla in there, there's some just underlying sweetness. It's never cloying and never difficult on the nose. As I mentioned, the blast of animalics that you get in the beginning really dies down when the scent enters its skin scent phase. Speaking of skin scent phase, unfortunately, I have to tell you about my gripe with Camel. The longevity on this is pretty bad on my skin. I tried it multiple times. No matter what I do, no matter how much I moisturize, this scent just turns into a skin scent very, very fast and just doesn't last, even as a skin scent. It's no wonder that the liquid content in this bottle is pretty low. Every time I wear it, I have to spray a ton of it just to combat the lack of performance. The initial projection of the scent is beautiful, it's loud, it's exciting and unique. Unfortunately, this beautiful projection is quite shortly lived, and after an hour, the scent sort of just disappears into the skin scent. It is still detectable if you dig your nose into your arm or wherever else you sprayed it, but it's far from the performance that I was expecting and far from the performance of other amber fragrances on the market. You can sort of combat this if you spray it on clothes, but the scent itself might stain lighter clothing, and the animalic part of this is actually way more suited to skin rather than textile. Overall longevity for me is very low. We're talking 5 or 6 hours, so I'm quite disappointed. Nonetheless, the scent is very beautiful and definitely worth a sniff. When talking practicalities, Zoologist is always a weird brand. The scents that I like, the scents that I'm intrigued by, are not really designed to be practical. I really wouldn't classify Camel as versatile or practical given how unique and recognizable it is, but you could probably pull this off in evenings and in special occasions. Personally, I wore this pretty much everywhere, from the office to the gym to outdoors. Spoiler, it's not really suited for the gym, it's just not that kind of scent profile. In the office, no one really complained. I think that they're used to me smelling quite weird. Outdoors, it's fine. This has been a great companion for my walks. This has been a great companion for my day-to-day activities. I actually think that the best use case for the scent is at home in the evening, used to unwind, used to being inspired, maybe watching a movie. This is a great evocative scent if you pair it with the right movie or piece of media. Used in the evening, the longevity is less of an issue just because if you spray it after work, those 5 to 6 hours really accompany you to bed, and when you wake up in the morning, the scent is gone. Age-wise, the versatility is kind of unknown. I would think that young people would get a kick out of this just because it's fun and quirky. I don't think this is necessarily suited to a more mature audience unless you're really into frags and you appreciate the artistic part of a fragrance. I spoke about the fact that the spicy ambery fragrance family is quite crowded. Is Camel redundant? Is Camel worth checking out? I would say that if you're a fan of Zoologist and you want a fragrance that is relatively approachable, still kind of edgy, Camel is a great choice. But in the grand scheme of things, I would say that wearability-wise, Camel is pretty much on the same vibe as something like Sergio Lutens Ambre Sultan. Now, Camel is a little bit more animalic, it's a little bit more fun and quirky, but ultimately they serve sort of the same purpose. Zoologist fragrances are quite expensive, and I usually don't complain about that because it is such a unique house. But given the bad longevity, given the possible redundancy of Camel, I can't enthusiastically blindly recommend this. You have to sample it first and you have to see if it fits your vibe. I'm repeating myself, but I really love Zoologist as a brand. I love their concepts. But if you're just starting out, although Camel is one of the more popular fragrances from Zoologist, at least according to Parfumo and Fragrantica, I don't really recommend starting from here. I would probably start from something easy yet unique, maybe something like Bee, maybe something like Civet. Civet is actually a great alternative to Camel. It doesn't necessarily smell similar, although it's very complex and has a similar type of vibe, but Civet is very long lasting and just as beautiful. Overall, I'm happy I have this, even just for the collection. I'm looking forward to owning a lot more Zoologists to review them here on the channel with you. If you like this type of content, if you like my approach to video, feel free to like and subscribe. It always helps the channel and it's massively appreciated. If you want to connect with me or interact with me, feel free to leave a comment, suggestion, or anything else down below. I always reply and I always keep the conversation open. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your time. Until the next video, many more Zoologist reviews to come. See ya and cheers.